This is Callum Smiles from Vox Populi Line. Today we're going to be looking into the Caerphilly by-election as a litmus test for Wales with the upcoming Senate election next year, and who knows, possibly an early general election. If you blink, you missed it. No, not my Welsh accent. The fact that Labour, the party that's ruled this Welsh heartland since 1918 and the country since the devolved government formation, crashed to third place with just a meek 11% of the vote. Plaid Cymru snatched the seat in a historic upset.
The big parties need to sit up and take notice. Wales, we are at the dawn of new leadership. We are at the dawn of a new beginning. And I look forward to playing my part for a new Wales, and in particular for the people of the Caerphilly constituency. I thank you with all of my heart.
Whilst Reform UK surged but fell comfortably short in second. This isn't just a local quirk, it's a seismic shift signalling real trouble for Labour in Wales and beyond. So we'll break down why Labour imploded so badly, unpack how Plaid Cymru and Reform UK are worlds apart yet oddly similar, and explore what this means for next year's Senate elections and Reform's rampage across Britain. Stick around and make sure you are subscribed for more of the content we do. First, the results. What happened? The turnout suggests that people are once again putting their faith in voting, as the turnout increased from 46.6% and hit a whopping 50.4%, which is the highest ever for a Senate by-election, beating the national average and suggesting real passion at the polls. So here's the breakdown. Lindsay Whittle of Plaid Cymru, who won the seat, got 15,961 votes, which was 47.38% of the electorate, which was a plus 18.98% from the previous election. Lilia Powell of Reform got 12,113 votes, which was 35.96% of the turnout, which was a whopping increase of 34.25% from 2021. And then we have Richard Tunnicliffe right down at the bottom, who stood for Labour, who only got 3,713 votes, which was 11.02%, down 34.94%. And then, just for a laugh, let's mention the Conservatives. Gareth Potter ran for them and got 690 votes, which was 2.05% of the turnout, down by 15.29%. So, interestingly, this now suggests that possibly the Tories are now a dead-in-the-water party nationwide, as they got 5,013 votes in 2021 and are now at a mere 690. Plaid's Whittle, a 72-year-old local legend who has actually run 14 times since 1983, won by 3,848 votes, signalling the end for Labour's century-long stronghold in Caerphilly. Think of it as the Valley's finally voting for change after decades of unchallenged red dominance. Reform, meanwhile, exploded from a pathetic Conservative-like 495 votes in 2021 to over 12,000 votes this time round, suggesting that Nigel Farage's machine is firing on all cylinders and come the next full election will be the party to beat. And Labour, well, as we've already pointed out, a humiliating third. More on that disaster next. So, how did the so-called party of the working class get obliterated in its own backyard? Well, it's a perfect storm of national and local woes. First, we have the big picture. UK Labour under Keir Starmer is tanking in the polls after 18 months. Many would actually suggest they started tanking in the polls after about 18 minutes in power. Remember, they didn't win the general election because they did so well, they won it because the Tories did so bad. And this Labour Party's austerity light, they have their winter fuel payment cuts, trying to kill your grandma, and they are promising to not increase taxes whilst increasing taxes. And there's a sense of the same old Westminster which has alienated the core vote. In Wales, that's amplified. Voters here feel the squeeze from Labour as the Labour-run NHS waiting lists are longer than a dragon's tail. There are stagnant wages in post-industrial towns, and there's a housing crisis that's left young families priced out of owning their own home, whilst migrants who offer nothing are imported in. Locally, Welsh Labour's been hit with scandals, from Vaughan Gething's short, stormy stint as First Minister, which ended in a donations row, and the man before him, Mark Drakeford, who closed sections of shops during COVID to keep people safe. And then everyone found out his son was a convicted rapist. And then even under the current leadership, Leonard Morgan, she's not done anything wrong, but the pace of, no pun intended, reform feels glacial. On the doorstep, it's all about frustration. We've waited 25 years for change. Where is it? One Labour minister admitted. People want us to go faster, another admitted. I'd argue people now just want them to fuck off. Fuck off. Add complacency, Labour thought Caerphilly was unbeatable. They ran a lacklustre campaign whilst opponents hammered home the failures. NHS is failing. Employment woes. Even immigration, though that's technically Westminster's mess spilling over, it's currently a Labour Westminster's mess that's spilling over. The result? Well, a 27% swing to Plaid Cymru and tactical votes from disillusioned Labour supporters to block reform. Insiders call it a defeat of Starmerism. Not just Welsh Labour, voters aren't just angry, they're done. Compass director Neil Lawson nailed it. Labour needs a massive reset or they'll be wiped out everywhere. Now the real intrigue. Plaid Cymru and Reform. The two insurgents who turned this into a cage match. They are neck and neck in the polls with about 30% each for the 2026 Senedd election. But how different are they really? So let's compare. The key differences. Plaid Cymru is the progressive nationalist powerhouse, very left-leaning, pro-devolution warriors fighting for Welsh independence, or at least full fiscal autonomy. They push for free social care, green energy via community-owned renewables, they want wealth taxes on the rich, and they want to protect the Welsh culture and language. Their message is all about pro-Wales, albeit a little bit socialist. More powers for Cardiff on welfare, rail, even broadcasting, and the candidate Lindsay Whittle embodied this as a tireless local councillor, promising practical change without the billionaire backing. Now on to Reform. They're the right-wing populist movement from the Brexit mould. They are anti-immigration firebrands, vowing to slash migration, freeze NHS spending on non-essentials, and scrap net zero targets. Farage's crew appeals to Tory defectors and angry ex-Labour voters with take back control vibes. So now the surprising similarities. Both are anti-establishment disruptors, feasting on the Labour carcass. They're consolidating Labour's lost vote. Plaid grabs the progressive defectors, whereas Reform gets the disillusioned working class ones. Both hammer the public service failures, and both are promising real change over Westminster's tired status quo. And they're both surging. Reform from nowhere to 36% here in Caerphilly, and Plaid up 19 points. In a multi-party Wales, they're the new duopoly, and that's not an opinion, that is now fact. Squeezing Labour and the Tories. Tory who? Exactly. Bottom line, it's a two-horse race for the Senedd next year, and Labour and the Tories aren't anywhere to be seen. So what does this mean for the 2026 Senedd elections and Reform across Britain? So crystal ball time. What does Caerphilly whisper for May 2026's Senedd vote and the UK's political earthquake? For Wales, this is Labour's wake-up call. Nationally, it's also Labour's wake-up call. They are now a minority government in Wales with 29 seats of the possible 60. too short of a majority. And passing next year's budget will need deals with Plaid or others, which could actually work out in Labour's favour if they have to do deals with others, which waters down their socialism, and then come the Senate election, people go, oh, they weren't too bad in the last budget, not putting two and two together, knowing that that wasn't fully Labour. A Plaid Labour pact could stabilise things to a degree, but if anti-reform tactical voting holds, Plaid could edge it and possibly be the ruling party, ending 26 years of Labour rule. But there's a bit of a change. The Senate is changing. It's no longer going to be 60 seats. The new 96-seat Senate with proportional lists favours smaller parties, such as maybe the Labour and Conservative Party, who are now the small parties. So basically expect chaos. Reform could snag 20 plus seats if they are to convert the polls into votes. For Reform across Britain, don't write them off. They are now the party to beat. Chairman David Bull calls this a meteoric rise from 495 votes to 12,000 votes in only 4 years. It proves they can mobilise in Labour heartlands, echoing UKIP's 2016 heyday. But the loss does highlight some vulnerabilities. There is the anti-Farage sentiment with a certain section of the electorate which will never go away, and it appears here that the high turnout might have actually hurt them. Still, in a 2029 general election, Reform is eyeing 100 plus the rest seats if Labour keeps fumbling. Caerphilly shows that no seat is safe anymore, especially in white working class areas where immigration fearmongering does land. And I say fearmongering, that's usually comes with the connotation of it being false, but in this case it's very much a real issue. Farage's throw everything strategy kind of worked for turnout, but narrative matters. Plaid owned positive vision here. Overall, Welsh politics is realigning. The two-party dominance is dead. Labour are done. The Tories are so done. Who even are they anymore? And this is going to go into the next general election where it appears Reform will win the United Kingdom. So what are your thoughts? Well, firstly, what are your thoughts about the Senate going from 60 to 96 seats and going from first past the post to proportional representation? But what are your thoughts on this by-election? Do you think it's still a good thing that Plaid took it off Labour, just the fact that Labour lost it? Or do you think that Plaid are actually very Labour-like and the same problems are going to be there? Do let us know in the comments. And again, do not forget to like, share and subscribe. And head over to the website where you can see everything else we do. So, cheers.